Hey family, welcome back to the BC Boom channel. This week we are talking about being close to God, and I'm so excited because being in relationship with God has been the most consistent and best thing in my life, especially as you are emerging into an adult and as into a leader and things like that. Your relationship with God will be the one thing that keeps you sane and that also gives you the wisdom that you need. And so there also will be times where you feel lonely and you feel like no one really understands what you're going through, and you will have a lot of questions that a lot of people can't answer. And God is the one that will be able to answer all of those questions for you, especially if you're like struggling in your sexuality or you're struggling in your finances. He's the one that'll give you wisdom on how to deal with those challenges. And so you will feel lonely sometimes, and that's okay. But loneliness is also a choice. And so I want you to understand that you can choose to be in relationship with God and allow God to speak to those areas of your life that no one really knows about. One of my favorite scriptures is in Jeremiah, where it talks about like Jesus giving you remarkable secrets about your future. And so I think that it's important to be in relationship with him because he has so much to tell you about you that you don't even know yet. And so when you really draw nigh to him, he draws close to you as well. And he also tells you everything that you've been wanting to know about yourself. And that's where you find a lot of your dreams and passions, like things that you never thought you would be passionate about. Being in a relationship with God will reveal all of those things. And so our ministry partners are going to go deeper into this subject, and I'm so excited, and I really hope that you have your notebooks out and your pens, because note takers are dream makers, okay? So make sure that you have all of that and you get ready to receive what they have to say.
Hey, I'm Shane, and today I want to start by sharing something with you that most of you probably don't know about me. I actually spent years as a bat boy for the professional baseball team in the town that I grew up in. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound all that cool, especially because you've probably seen the videos of a dog doing that very thing on YouTube, but at the time it felt like a big deal. I got to be around some of my sports heroes, and yes, I was the person who went out and got the bats and brought them back into the dugout. It was an amazing time in my life, full of memories that I will have forever. But my guess is you probably didn't know that about me. And I wonder, have you ever seen someone post a question on social media that's like, what's one thing about you that most people don't know? This got me thinking about all the things that we don't know about each other. I think we all have things about us that no one knows. I'm sure you can think of something. In some ways, every person is like a prism. Remember these from science class? At first, it just looks like a piece of glass. But every once in a while, when light hits it just right, all sorts of color and cool lights appear. All of a sudden, we see things that we couldn't see before. And in the same way, we can't know everything there is to know about someone just by looking at them. The truth is, even if you know plenty of other people and other people know you, we can all still live with the feeling that nobody really knows us. And here's what I mean. We all experience loneliness at times. Whether you have close friends or just acquaintances, a crowd to hang out with or a few people, a constant stream of communication on Discord or a few texts here and there are times when it's easy to feel like either one, we don't really fit in, or two, no one really knows us. In fact, there's actually research about this. Just this week, I read a survey of a bunch of middle and high school students. On the day of the survey, 40% of them said they feel lonely or disconnected from others most of the time. Think about your classes at school and picture 10 people. At least 4 out of that 10 feel disconnected from other people most of the time. Think about it this way. You kind of feel separated. Let me show you what I mean. For most of us, it can feel like there's a barrier between us and other people. I mean, sure, I know everything still exists on the other side. I can even kind of hear what's going on over there. But there's something between here and there, or between me and everything else. And with that said, I want you to know that 2 things are true. Everybody feels this way. Literally everybody. The popular person, they feel lonely and disconnected at times. The person with a lot of friends, them too. The dating people, yeah, they do as well. And this isn't just a teenager thing. Every adult in this room would tell you that we experience it too. The feeling that we're disconnected or somehow separated from others is pretty common for most humans. And then second, we're all pretty sure that it's not supposed to feel this way, aren't we? Isn't there something in us that feels like we're not supposed to feel disconnected from others? Something in us tells us that we're not meant to live feeling alone or like an outsider. I can't explain it, but we feel it. We weren't created to live like this. And sometimes we can feel that way about God too. For some of you, you feel, or maybe you've even been taught that God is close to you and cares about your life. But there's others of us who've been taught or felt like God is far away or distant or cold or just this abstract thing out there, which isn't helpful when you're already feeling disconnected from other people. The idea of Jesus, it sounds nice, but let's be honest. As incredible as it is to know that Jesus died on a cross for my sins, it doesn't always feel helpful when I'm disconnected from everyone and alone on a Friday night. It doesn't always make us feel better when we want to be known and we want to feel connected beyond the surface level interactions that we have with other people. In the same way that people are like prisms, Jesus is too. When you take another look beyond what you know about Jesus on the surface, there's so much more than meets the eyes. Not to mention, a lot of people have ideas about who Jesus really is and why he came to earth. Those conversations, they come up a lot, especially around this time of year, because Easter is when we celebrate the moment and the meaning of Jesus' death and resurrection. So, to kick off this Easter season, we're gonna go right to that moment, the end of Jesus' life. But first, let's talk about the culture and the community that Jesus lived in. See, Jesus lived in ancient Israel, and he grew up in a first century Jewish culture, which is just a fancy way of saying that the people that Jesus was around every day were very religious. I mean, really religious. A huge part of life for them was this building that was called the temple. We're gonna talk about that for a minute because it'll help us see something incredible about Jesus a little while later. See, the temple was basically the core of Jewish religious life. However, religion was a part of all aspects of their lives. What they ate, the rules that they followed, how they dressed, and even how they treated other people. And because of that, the temple wasn't just a building that you went to occasionally, like a church. It was the hub for community and culture in their society. Different parts of the temple were for different people. For example, if you weren't Jewish, you had to stay on the outside area. Or women, even if they were Jewish, they could only go in so far. Jewish men could go inside, but certain places were off limits if they weren't part of the religious order, kind of like being a part of a really special staff. Priests could go in most places, but only on certain days. The whole thing was built so that people kept their distance from the center of the temple. This was a place called the Holy of Holies. It was sectioned off by a curtain. In fact, even the most important priest was only allowed to go behind the curtain one time per year. Why? Well, this area, it was a reminder of God's presence in heaven and on earth. And the curtains, they represented the separation between God and humans. It kept separate what was sacred. It was kind of like a large museum. There's some things that people were allowed to touch and interact with, but the most valuable stuff, it was behind glass. There was no way that you could even get close to it. That's kind of how the temple worked. And the Holy of Holies was like that part of the museum that no one could even enter. Okay, so the point is, the culture that Jesus lived in had a lot of separation. That sense of disconnection that you and I have wasn't just a feeling for the Israelite people, it was a physical reality. People were separated from each other, and they were separated from the place that represented the presence of God. So, how do we get from that to Easter and this whole Prism idea? Many Jewish people hoped that Jesus would help the Jews conquer the Roman oppressors by leading an uprising and trying to gain power. Instead, the opposite happened. The Romans arrested Jesus for made-up reasons. They took him through a shady court system that framed him and then sentenced him to death. And Matthew, who's one of his closest friends, reported what happened next. He wrote the story this way. He says, they came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There, they offered Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall. But after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Crucifixion, it's an ancient form of torture that the Roman Empire used not just to kill people, but also to scare everybody who was watching. So they did it in a really public way. It was awful, awful. And not only was Jesus brutally murdered, but the people who did it mocked and insulted him in the process. As he died, check out what happened. And when Jesus cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Remember that curtain? The one that separated God from everybody else? It was ripped apart, torn from top to bottom. I mean, how did God do that? I have no idea, but what I know for sure is that the message was clear. The days of separation were over forever. In one moment, Jesus changed everything. He made it perfectly clear what his life was all about up until that point. That there was no separation when it comes to you and God. No curtain, no wall, no court, nothing. You may feel distant from your friends and family, but God is close. God's always there. You might feel like other people don't know you or want to be close to you, but God does. You may feel like you have to be good or well-behaved to be around God, but you don't. Nothing you do or don't do can separate you from having access to the God who loves you. Jesus turned the world upside down. He defeated death, and he tore the curtain from the top to the bottom to prove to you and to me that we are meant to be close, not separated or alone. Think of it this way. One of the things that Jesus wishes you knew and never forgot is this: you can be close to God. You may feel disconnected from everyone else around you, but you never have to be disconnected from God. There's no curtain between God and you. Jesus came to show us God is there. He's close to you no matter what. As for today, what does this idea of Jesus closing the gap of separation mean for us? For some of you, this idea, it might be totally new. You've never considered closeness with God something that you could actually experience. You've only ever experienced God as distant and far away or unreachable. And today, I want you to begin to reconsider what Jesus' life and death proved to be true. You can be confident that because of Jesus, you can be close to God. And for those of us who are Jesus followers, it's our job to treat other people like they can be connected to Jesus as well. Do you believe that Jesus' work was good enough to bring down the curtain for everyone or only for certain people? In the same way that you may feel disconnected, other people have times when they feel alone or unknown and unloved too. And you and I, we have an incredible opportunity to let them know that they can be close to God. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we have small groups, so that we can remind each other that even when we feel disconnected, there's no separation between God and us anymore. You can be close to God. We still long for community and friendships. Yes, God wired you for other people, and that's a really good thing. Those relationships are important, and we should pursue them. But God is close to us and understands even better than other people can. Our own emotions will tell us that people don't get us. When those things happen, let them remind you that you have a God who wants to be close to you and who has made a way through Jesus for you to never be alone.
I hope that was good for you, and I hope that you took a lot of notes, because I definitely enjoyed that lesson. And I'm so thankful that we serve a God whose ways are not like our ways, and that there is nothing that we can do to separate us from his love. And so I just pray that you hold on to that this week, especially when you're feeling alone or when you're going through some challenges, that you may know that God still loves you and that he will never leave you or forsake you, just like how he said in Hebrews. And even more so, I want you to encourage people around you that may be struggling, and even if you don't understand their struggles, but to be a listening ear and to pour out your love to them, just as God has given you his love. And I pray that you encourage people and that you continue to draw close to God this week. And so I hope you guys enjoy your week and you go be great. Bye. See you next time.